I do believe that there are a lot of competitors coming for Amazon Fast. TikTok Shop, they get a lot of traffic. And if they can solve for some of those logistics pieces, that's a real threat. Walmart's a real threat. They're no longer a rounding error. They're growing every year. Big time. I'm Jason Boyce, founder and CEO of Avenue 7 Media and host of the Day 2 podcast. Today's guest, Scott Ohsman. Scott has been working with brands for more than 28 years in retail. I think he started when he was 12. In retail, e-commerce, and has launched over 200 brands on Amazon. After a successful exit from his own sales and marketing agency in the Pacific Northwest, Scott is now VP of Digital Commerce for the marketing agency Quickfire. Scott has been a featured speaker at national trade shows and has developed distribution strategies for many top brands and is a dear friend. Scott, welcome to the Day 2 podcast. How the heck are you?
I'm just excited. I'm elated to get on the Day 2 podcast. It's just fabulous.
I love it. Thank you, man. I know you're busy and we're recording this on a Monday. So, Mondays suck in general. Thank you for carving time out of your busy schedule. Really appreciate it.
No, you're busier than I am. This just happens to be a weird day.
You've been in this retail game for a long time, Scott. How'd you get started and bring us all the way to present day? How did you get involved in this sort of retail business? Where'd you start and where are you at today?
Family, mostly. I thought I wanted to be in the television movie business since I was 12 years old. Went out there, did that, decided, wow, this is not really what I thought it was going to be. And then basically was trying to get into sales, got into sales, actually started out selling laundry. We don't have enough time to get,
I'm sorry. Did you say selling laundry? Was it dirty laundry or clean?
Dirty laundry services. Okay. Laundry services. And it was horrible. It was 99% rejection. I'm out there calling on gas stations at the time, right? When they actually mechanics and industrial parks. I'm walking door to door in a suit, trying to get their laundry services where we go and we pick up their mats and we whatever. It's still very big business today. And it was dreadful at the same time. We had all this sales training, like real actual, what are the 4 steps? Like, it was brutal, right? But I hated it. And then I hated it so much to you know what? You're pretty good at sales, but we need a service manager. So we need to do that. I'm going to really fast forward here. So people don't have to fast forward already on their pod.
Well, first of all, if you're still selling laundry services, I would love to have somebody come and do my laundry. Just as an aside.
No. It was one of those situations where I was miserable, but it was the best thing for me because I understood I'm a people guy, right? So my wife makes fun of me. I make friends with everybody in the first 30 seconds. Everybody's my best friend. So I got to use a lot of that. And then my mother-in-law was an independent multi-brand rep in the outdoor business. And so my mother-in-law knew a guy who was the JanSport rep, JanSport backpacks, right? We all know them.
My daughter just bought a JanSport backpack for the school year, Scott. They're still alive and well.
Phenomenal brand. You want to talk about brand equity and brand sustainability and all that other stuff? They're unbelievable, right? The bottom line is that I worked for that guy, did computer stuff for him for 2.5 years. I literally left messages on his old answer machine. For those who are, under 40, we'd had answer machines. And I would just every 2 months just leave him thing. I'd do a couple projects, whatever. Finally, in 1995, he calls and says, basically, kid, you still want to be a rep? And I'm like, yes, absolutely. By that time, I had moved on from laundry to the glamorous life of selling long distance telecommunications.
Amazing.
Yeah,
is that like the long distance card you'd have to
MCI, baby. MCI.
Oh yeah, MCI, of course. Later, I think they became Sprint, right?
I don't even remember, but it was 99% rejection, cold call. So this guy calls me. I'm like, yeah, please. So I started out as an independent sub rep for an agency that their big line was JanSport, but we sold other stuff. We sold some socks. We sold some other things. And my job, the biggest thing was I called on a lot of the JCPenney's in the Northwest. So Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Montana, Alaska. Through that, I started selling. And then I was a multi-branded rep for a bunch of other people. And my mother-in-law, who originally got me in contact, she sold apparel. She taught me the apparel business. I had another guy, Tracy Ross. He taught me the footwear business. So after 15, 20 years, then I got my big call up to go work at North Face. So I worked at North Face and managed REI. So I was basically multiple categories and businesses, and then got bigger and bigger from big key account, national account management, all the way to your independent specialty, over 500 doors in the Northwest. So every type of retailer you could imagine, except grocery. Grocery wasn't big there. So that was my MBA. That's what informs me. And then in 2006, all of a sudden, this little thing called Amazon came, and I was working actually at the time. I left North Face, went to work at Columbia Sportswear, again, managing regional and national change. And I was just intrigued by it. And I was just nerdy enough, right? I knew computers and just techie enough to go, interesting. So that grew for our agency. I took over the agency because I said, I want it in 2012, 13. We had launched a bunch of outdoor brands on Amazon.com, 1P, Vendor
Central. Got it. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's the hook here. And by the way, we had most of the big brands in the outdoor industry, they weren't national brands. It took us 2 years to talk them into it to go to Amazon because everyone was freaked out that their REI business, which was our biggest account in the Northwest for outdoor, oh no, we can't go to Amazon. They're gonna, REI is gonna drop all their business. Well, that's not what happened actually. But so that's how I got into Amazon in 2000, really head first in 2006.
I want to go back to this laundry sales training that you got, right? Because this is important. I think for any young people who are listening, sales training is important. When I was in the Marines, just getting out, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and it changed my life. And what was one of the key messages in that book was, Robert Kiyosaki saying, you've got to get sales training, go and get sales training. And so my first job after leaving the Marine Corps was at Johnson & Johnson. They had an amazing sales training program. So what are those key elements? You are like a natural sales guy. People meet you in 10 seconds, they like you, and you're already closing them. Do you still feel in today's world that sales training is important? And secondly, do you think that sales training is important even for online e-commerce sales?
The misnomer, the misleading information is, sales guy. That means you're not honest. Okay, that means you're got ulterior motives, and your agenda is always your agenda, right? You're basically, it's a used car salesman quotas, right? That's sales. Oh, I wouldn't be good at sales. I'm sorry. Do people like you? Do you have long-term relationships? Do you build trust quickly? Then guess what? Sales is actually part of what everybody's in sales. Jason, you're in sales. I'm in sales. I've been married 30 years just to get something done that we're all selling.
Yeah.
We're all selling.
Right on.
The accounting people, they're selling. The CFOs are selling that. Everybody is doing sales. The misnomer is, I think sales training is so important because then you internalize it to your personality. What my experience of selling laundry and basically was, my job was to go get the customer, get the contract, and then leave. Okay. And then I hand it off to the service department. I never talked to those people really ever again. That's the thing. What it learned for me, I don't like that. Relationship sales, longer term relationship sales is what I like and still like and do every single day.
That brings us back to Vendor Central. Tough to get a relationship with Amazon when your buyer swaps out every 6 months to 2 years, right? So when did you start getting involved? What year are we talking about Vendor Central? I mean,
2006, really.
Okay, 2006. So this is when 1P was still the king and queen of the Amazon game. What was it like as a 1P vendor back then?
Yeah, you 3Pers were driving me nuts. I couldn't stand you.
That's because we were kicking your ass, Scott.
You were, and you were doing it. I couldn't control it. Nobody talked to me. You were like third-party contributions of the pricing. I mean, you were a nightmare, absolute nightmare.
Yes, you are welcome. Made you better.
Because it was just like they'd followed the national retailer model, right? So I'm dealing with multiple buyers at REI, at Costco, at Nordstrom's, big fancy retailers that people know. I also had medium-sized regional department stores and sporting goods, whatever. What they did is they created an outdoor business, sports and outdoor, and they had these buyers that would come out and they would give you purchase orders. It's a very similar relationship business building. It was translatable, right? It was different. Now, the way they did stuff and the things they asked for and the metrics they used were very different and very weird. And that's what the learning curve was. And their mentality was different at that time, right? I mean, they had a completely different philosophy. At that time, it was load them up, let it rip, and see what happens. We were loading every freaking SKU in the catalog. I'll never forget Bolé Serengeti. 748 SKUs, hand done, handcrafted. One, they didn't have bulk upload in those days, baby. One by freaking one. Yours truly, Scotty O. That's every image.
Oh,
everything hand done.
I never had to do that as a 3P seller. We had CSV files.
I did that, but again, they didn't work as well. We didn't have API. We didn't have any of that crap. We didn't have a lot of stuff. EDI, right? That we were working on EDI, and then anyway, but it was a new thing. And for the manufacturers at that time, oh my God, you know, we talk about still manufacturers who you talk a lot about, right? Trying to get them in the mindset of changing the internal structures and infrastructures and how to do business with Amazon. Well, can you imagine 2006 what that was like?
Oh no.
It was like they looked at me with cross-eyed going, what? They want ASIN? What the hell's an ASIN?
Every brand manufacturer conversation I have today starts with, hey, we've been doing this B2B thing for a very long time. We realize that we need to do more D2C. We don't know how. Can you help us? Is this the beginning of that groundswell shift of brands realizing they need to have some kind of a relationship with the person with the credit card, not just the middle person who was the buyer?
You know, we live in our little bubbles, right? I'll be the first to admit it. I live in a little bubble, but you and I, and you talk to different industries, you know, for OutTech, for Quickfire, which is part of OutTech anyway, it's mostly in real sporting, is like, we call it the old hook and bullet, right? These are fishing. There's still all these industries. That industry is very digitally savvy, but we keep running into these industries, right? Who they're just not set up for this. They're not built for it.
Right.
So I think, yes, we are at a ground swelling. I think COVID took that and just accelerated it, right? Just like everything else. But I'm probably, we could compare notes, right? I'm dumbfounded every week, month, whatever, when you talk to somebody. Again, these manufacturers, owners, they know they need to. They're not like fighting it. But they still aren't. And you're just going, wait, what? How are you? Why don't you have a Shopify site and blah, 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 or whatever huge ERP system?
You remember, you were there in the meeting room at Amazon headquarters with the buyers selling all these sporting goods. You remember what it was like when Vendor Central ruled.
Oh, yeah.
Fast forward to today, looking back over the last 3 or 4 years, with the exception of the most recent quarter, 1P has been flat. That is not a good story if you are working at Amazon. When did this start to change? And what's the difference between what it was like in the early days when you were there versus what it's like now with the Vendor Central game?
So back then, in fact, I spoke, could name drop here with some other e-com legends, Eric Heller, right there. There, I did it.
By the way, I think Eric was my third sports and outdoors category manager in the marketplace.
Okay, right.
Yeah, before he switched over to you guys.
Yeah.
He
took the evil empire.
Taught him how to do it. And then
you're part of the evil empire now.
I am. I am
crossed
part
over.
of it. I admit.
So yes, it was really easy for me, and had a really convincing, and I had hard data and logic that 1P was better than 3P if you're selling to or on Amazon.com. I could win that baby all day long because we had way more toys. We could do stuff. We had the marketing machines, all the stuff that they did.
Buy box.
Oh, I didn't even care about. I didn't even have to think about a buy box.
Yeah.
Right? I didn't even care about it. We got fat POs. Cash flow was great. You're jiving, right? We could build businesses and scale businesses so fast because we had access to all the tricks, all the toys and tricks. We had everything. Nothing was released at 3P until like 6 months, a year, sometimes longer. Remember? A+. Oh my God, they can do A+. We can't. You mean enhance brand content?
Yeah. We couldn't do it.
Couldn't do it. And then the game was, all you 3P guys were like, do you know somebody at Vendor Central? Do you have a buyer?
Yeah.
Can we somebody high up and give us this access to the stuff? And then the other thing, which is laughable today because it's the precipice of their entire business and why the 3P model is so awesome, is advertising. Back then, we had access to all kinds of advertising. We could do the deal of the days, all that stuff. 3P couldn't do it.
AMS, we had no access.
AMS, Amazon Marketing Service, had no access. And I'm walking around like, peacocking down the street going, 3P schmeepy. Like, nice job, guys.
I remember sitting down at the lunch table with you when I was still living in Seattle, and you doing that dance
exactly.
table with me. Yeah.
And you know what? You guys were jealous, and I loved it. But to be fair, in your defense, Jason Boyce, in your defense at that time, and I could, in 2014, 2013, I'm like, I got to figure out this 3P thing, because I could see the problems were becoming more. I could see that honestly, the third-party software and the market for sellers, I could just see that I had to figure out your side of the street, or else I was going to be in big trouble. And that's really when it started. The big purge, just reminder, historical precedent, right? The big purge of Vendor Central was 2018. It's what's happening, and we talked about it in Europe and our great friend Martin Heubel and everything else. What they're experiencing today, or in the last year, and is really what happened in the U.S. market in 2018, where they said the first rumor was, if you're not doing $10 million, that's wholesale, by the way, that's product cost, $10 million. Then we're taking buyer. You don't have a buyer. You don't have an in-stock manager. You don't have the marketing reps and the AMS reps, right? We're pivotal. Amazon Media Group, which was AMG, which is now DSP. I was hanging out with those people all the time. It's completely flipped.
I think it was 2018. Our viewers and listeners will correct me if I'm wrong, when Jeff Bezos came out and said third-party sellers are kicking our first-party butts. Was that about the right time?
I don't know. That is a pivotal quote in his letter to the share. You talked about that the other day. That's such a great point, because that's exactly when he said, "What's going on?" I don't know if it was 2018. Might have been.
I think it was about that time range for sure. James Kelly reminded me. I can't even take credit for that, but that's when the shift happened. Vendor Express went away.
Yes, Vendor Express. Oh my God,
remember that? That was a moneymaker for brands for a long time.
What a colossal just line that up on the list of a disaster. I mean, go put the Fire Phone with that. That thing was junk, and it caused me problems, man. The problem with 1P now, and everybody is, or it's ever been, it's invite only. So with Vendor Express, it was an auto self-help way where any seller could just get a vendor code and be a 1P seller.
What's 1P like today versus the good old days?
Not a bunch of stuff has changed. I mean, day-to-day stuff has changed. They have actually tried in the operational side, they kind of slowly are getting into APIs. But the truth is, the manufacturers and some of the largest brands and conglomerates in the world, they're running off EDI, which is an old clunky technical, because that's how they do business with retail. So they have put the APIs, that's different. That's putting out to sales, and there's more APIs now today than ever. We've only been talking about that for years and years. That's one big thing.
Yeah.
The other big thing is only the top tier, right? Because it's flipped. 60% of the units now are third-party seller units versus 1P. So they have purged. The purge is gone. And the biggest difference is they're only dealing with the biggest brands in the world mostly. Now, just for your listeners, right? There's exceptions, okay, per category, per whatever. You have to be doing 50 million, 60. You have to be a big brand or one of the hottest brands in the world for you guys to do that. And that is a massive change. And the other thing is they don't want every single item in your catalog. Now, this is super important. They want to know that they could get every item in your catalog, but they don't necessarily want to purchase and own every item. So those are a couple big things that have changed drastically. And there's no leverage anymore. There's nothing that Vendor Central has access to that third-party Central doesn't have, to be honest. The one shift that's happening right now is that they're actually bringing back. We lost all the merchandisers and the marketing people. And when you go buy a gift guide, a gift package, that's all starting to come back.
Interesting.
Yeah, overpriced, really expensive, flashy, cool things. I want a gateway. I want to go buy. I want to be on this, the lead page on this, or the homepage. That's all coming back.
And so Amazon Accelerate has been a big surprise to me over the last 2 years. This is a seller-focused conference, inviting new sellers, existing sellers, helping them make connections with Amazon employees. Does any such conference exist on the Vendor Central side?
Not that I am aware of.
Has it ever?
No.
It's just that individual meeting with the buyer if you have enough business that you're pushing Amazon's way, right?
Yeah, it really isn't the vendor. So what there was all the different industry trade shows, the B2B trade shows. Amazon was very prevalent. Their buyers were prevalent. All of that, they show up. They still do that to this day, but not as much. Because again, they have way less vendor managers, what they call the buyers. And then it's a very flat, just like a 3P. People think, oh, this huge company. I mean, there's barely anybody there running this whole thing. The other big shift is, just real quick, they are leaning heavier than ever into what they called SVS. So strategic vendor services, basically where the manufacturer or the vendor pays a percentage of the total business, total wholesale invoice, where you can have your own Amazon employee inside Amazon that's dedicated just to your brand. This has been around since forever, by the way. This has been around, but they're really leaning heavily on that because they're trying to automate. Actually, I see this on 3P too, right? The Accelerate program. They got all the account
They used to call it a SAM, strategic account manager. Now it's a SaaS, I think, program. Yeah. It was free the first year. Then they charge you 30 to 60 grand after that. Interesting.
Well, you can imagine these brands now are doing well over 100 million, so
yeah, the
cost of these people is
it's nothing for them.
No, but you got to negotiate this. And the key to that, I tell everybody, is who you get. If you get a rock star, it's great. If you don't, then it really sucks.
You get someone new, you're actually training them. Yeah.
100%. And as I always like to say, Jason, now that you're on the dark side over here on the agency side, 90%, I will say, maybe 80%, depends on category, blah, 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 disclaimer. They got to file the same tickets you and I do, bro.
Oh, yeah.
That's my biggest argument. He's like, why am I going to pay $250,000 for somebody who has to do the same thing I got to do? Or somebody will say, oh, I know the buyer. I got an SMS. I got an SAS. I got something. I got something S. I'll talk to them. I got a relationship. Great. Guess what? They have to file the same ticket. Half the time, they're frustrated. They don't have the access that you and I do. So stop with that, please.
And the brands are like, this is you selling my product. Why am I unscrewing your system, right? It's funny. I mean, I think one of the most surprising things to me and to the 1P brands that we manage here at App7 is that they don't always have the buy box. That wasn't, you never had that problem before, but now they're like, wait a minute, I don't have the buy box and I've sold to Amazon. They're not maintaining the buy box. And our team many times, Scott, will get on the call with the vendor manager and their brand, and our people will yell at the vendor manager saying, what are you doing? Of course you're not hitting your revenue numbers because your buy box suppressed. What do you even know what that means? So yeah, this is a big change.
Huge.
I'm actually not unhappy with it because it's like an equalizer for 1P versus 3P on some level, right?
No, and those first lunches when I could go in there chest up and go, hey, 1P, you know what? I can't defend 1P anymore. I honestly, I'd like to. I'm a 1P guy, but it's harder to be fair. It's like I can't really, and most of my business is now 3P, or we're like even hybrid is getting tougher because of the cost and the unit economics and everything else. So it's just tough. But the other big jealousy is, and this is the other thing that has not changed, is you guys, and I'll say this in my 1P hat, you guys get to see sales, like real-time sales every day. They still don't have that on 1P. They have a 7-day thing. Vendor Central's, I can't really cuss here, but it's not good, okay? Vendor Central team is way. I mean, it's like TikTok Shop saying, we're going to create our own U.S. fulfillment. Oh, really? Good luck, because you got about 25 years and $8 trillion to make up. That's Vendor Central engineers versus 3P engineers and central engineers. You know what I'm saying?
I picking up what you're throwing down, Scott.
There's no way they're going to catch up. There's no way.
No.
So we can't. Right. We have to wait a week, and I love this. The holiday's coming up, Jason. This is the greatest 1P thing ever. How'd you do? I
no idea.
How'd you do with Cyber Week, Black Friday? Well, I'll know next Tuesday. That's the truth, man.
Yeah, I get it. Scott, this is great. I want to shift gears to some Amazon news. I want to get your take on this. Andy Jassy earlier this year announced a more streamlined, cost-effective regional logistics plan, not just for FBA, but I imagine this is for vendor accounts as well. First, how's this been for your 1P folks, and how about your 3P folks?
Well, I think it's an underrated story. You and I chit-chatted about what are we going to talk about today. To me, when I heard this news on the earnings report, I think it was, I can't remember, but yeah. And we don't know when it really started. I can't imagine last holiday, but really January 1, I think they were kind of planting seeds. This is a massive situation, and it's caused turmoil on both 1P, 3P, I don't know. So on 1P, just like on 3P, on the fulfillment sense side, back in the day, no joke. You sold shoes, Jason. Did you ever sell shoes? No, now you probably do, but back in the day, you didn't.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. Yeah. It's not an easy category.
Right, but this is the same for your old business when you're doing basketball stuff and that kind of thing. They only had 2 fulfillment centers in the country that you could send your shoes to that would process and develop and fulfill shoes. That's it. Then they had the stage of, we're going to make specific fulfillment centers and we're automating setting up, but they're only good for items that have these DIMMs, right? It's super techie, really makes sense. They do this with electronics. Well, now this is what's just unbelievable to me. This is a system that's 20 some years old. Like, you built the national fulfillment center that they have built out and all the deliveries and everything else they got going on, the sorting sessions, right? Stations. This is a massive deal.
Hundreds of pieces.
This is such a ginormous undertaking to change that entire system to a regional system. It's causing havoc. You and I agree. I don't think it's going to change, and it's going to cause more havoc this holiday that people even understand. I think it's going to go into 24. This is a massive deal, especially outside of major metropolitan markets, is where you're seeing a real big effect on this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think some of the downside, and they're offering some opportunities like with Amazon supply chain on the 3P side, where you can have that placement in the regional areas. But in the old days, if you had good ranking, you were showing up in the search results in every region, and that's just not the case anymore. So there's some instances where, as we're looking at brands, we're figuring out how to co-locate or to locate inventory in a region that's not really getting the same results as others, or we're seeing a dip in sales and we can't describe it. It's because of this regional change. I think, my take on this FBA thing, it had to be done, right? And if it results in lowering fees or not increasing fees on the FB side for sellers, that's great, but it's definitely having some hiccups, right, Scott?
It has huge hiccups, but here's the win, man. Anybody who's a stockholder or whatever, or is into this stuff, you know how much net margin they're going to gain? They already saw it in the first quarter. The amount of money that they have been losing for 25 years, sending stuff all over the country just to supply and get it closer to the consumer, is Bananaville. The FC transfer. Every day you see stuff in FC transfer. Costs them a fortune. That's all going to go away. They're going to limit that. What is that going to mean? Massive margins, massive profit to Amazon. Now, will we any see that as sellers and brands and manufacturers?
I hope so.
Hell to the no, Jason.
I can hope against hope, can't I?
But the last key point about what is causing havoc about this, the national to regional is, and you're probably seeing this as well, right? These manufacturers are set up to do, when you get an order, you're putting a big pallet LTL order, right? Well, I've been traditionally sending it to one fulfillment center, then it goes away. Now that's your point, right? We're doing pallet order. They're breaking pallets into like 60 different things. So this is causing third-party logistics, owned brand manufacturer, retail, warehouses, ticketing. This is causing massive labor, massive complexity. And these systems aren't set up for this in the Amazon channel, right? They're used to it if they sell retail, if they sell these other things. But this is also causing major delays, major havoc.
Yeah, I think a big shift that I saw on a consumer side about these Ring cameras, I think I've mentioned it now 4 times on the podcast, and I called Amazon.
I got to ring your bell.
Thank you. I need a bell. And when I called support and said, why haven't these arrived? I ordered them 2 weeks ago. They said, oh, they haven't shipped yet. I'm like, well, that's not meeting the Prime promise. And they said, oh, it does. The Prime promise is 2 days after it ships. I'm like, what? Since when? They're like, I don't know. This has always been the case. And I'm like, no, it hasn't. So, I mean, I think they're trying to come back down to reality, to your point specifically, because costs are crazy for meeting this Prime promise the way they have been doing it forever. My concern with the Amazon supply chain, and it's to be continued, our team is trying to test it with some of our clients here, is, when you're doing an FBA prep, you're setting it to 1 to 3 warehouses, and that's it. You know what the fee is, you know what it is up front. If you move your inventory into long-term storage and it's an auto replenish, does that mean you've got 200 shipments a week going to 200 different FCs? Because that could add up. And so that's the big question mark I have remaining about supply chain. If it's not any more than doing the FBA prep and in fact saves money, this whole Amazon supply chain thing could be a huge win. And folks who are doing it will have higher sales growth than those who are not, which is probably part of the point, right, Scott?
Yeah. I mean, listen, if you're asking my opinion or what I think about this, the Amazon supply chain, the buy with Prime, all this, the advertising, everything, this is going to be game changer. This is going to it's going to take years. A lot of brand owners, D2C, doesn't matter where they are in their life, right? Their costs are unbelievably cheap. The price per unit on freight to LTL is ridiculous. It's 20-30% less. It's crazy. And speaking of the Prime promise, it's been Prime maybe since COVID. There's been no promise.
Prime maybe.
It's been Prime maybe. And
yeah,
so
it
depends on where you live. If you live in a major metropolitan area where they are just surrounding you and you can get stuff, people don't even, it doesn't even bother them, right? But I just think they're going after SMB. They're going after this second tier of really large enterprise with the Shopify thing. Don't you see it? It's like the new napkin, Jason. It's the new flywheel.
Yeah, it is. It is. They're going after the other half of the online product market.
And they can do it faster and cheaper than freaking anybody.
One positive thing about this, I know Amazon shipping was announced at Accelerate too, where you can ship your wherever the order came from to whomever, even if it's not an Amazon shopper. I know it's early days and I'm seeing some grumblings that it isn't working great, but how long have we been hooked into this duopoly between UPS and FedEx? Forever, right? Another entrant into this market, I think, is a good sign. I think it's busting up that duopoly a little bit. At least I hope that's the case.
Now, let me ask you, I was in the car this morning, which is rare for me, not in front of my screen. And I heard an advertisement from Amazon for what they call, and I'm in the Seattle area, Amazon Hub. And this is some type of shipping. This is like UPS ship stores. I don't know. I haven't looked I didn't Google it. Amazon, do you know about this?
I don't know about this. To be continued. It's a good one.
I don't know about this either.
Amazon Hub. Okay.
So basically the advertisement was, hey, if you're a small business in your community and you want to ship stuff and get stuff shipped to you, go sign up for Amazon Hub and we'll do it cheaper and better and blah, blah, blah.
That's got to be part of this supply chain system. They didn't mention at the Accelerate conference. It's almost like they're going after non-sellers with this. Interesting.
Yeah. So that's the bigger play here, right?
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
It's no longer you got to be doing business with Amazon. It's AWS, as you've pointed out absolutely brilliantly, right? And a lot of people, this is the AWS Jassy playbook applied to their incredible operational, like best varsity. It's varsity level.
Absolutely. This is not undergrad. Yeah. Okay. One more story that's out there, Scott. You and I talked a little bit about it at breakfast before the Accelerate conference one day when I was up in Seattle. Great to see you, by the way. And I trust it. Since then it's come out.
Yeah.
It's been announced. What are your thoughts on the FTC's lawsuit against Amazon? What's the over under here? Are they going to win this case? They're going to lose this case? What do you think?
It's a joke. This is a joke. Are we on? Is this a Tonight Show with that garbage? Seriously. You and I talked about it. Like, I had to read it 3 times. Is this a bit? I mean, is somebody trying to pull something over on somebody? What are we even doing out here? Lena Khan, please. We are in your camp. We are rooting for you. We think there's some accountability, a lot of different games that are being played that are unfair and creating an unfair marketplace. But with this cockamamie stuff, no, they got one thing in there about the price suppression. That's it. But as I said to you, that morning, what are they going to do? Shut down every repricing tool in the world? Are they going to shut down every major retailer who does the exact same thing? I hate it, by the way, and I'm fully against it, especially when it's not warranted, right? If the whole Amazon thing is, hey, control your supply, control your distribution, man. It's not our problem. We're just following the market. I think that's a good start, and I think it's just one. I think it's going to fail. I think it's going to. I think you told me this, and I agree with you. I think it's going to get thrown out like within seconds of some. It's wrong. First of all, it's just it's not even accurate.
I read that court document, at least the part that wasn't redacted.
Yeah,
and I have to agree with a lot of what you're saying. In one paragraph, or there was a series of 2 or 3 paragraphs where, on one hand, the claim is saying that Amazon is lowering prices. I'm guessing that's on the vendor central that automatically matches. I don't know how that's bad for consumers. On the other hand, they're saying it's raising prices. And I was like, you need to pick one of those. You can't put both in there. I can imagine a judge going, let me get this straight. You're both complaining that they're lowering and raising prices at the same time.
Exactly.
Right? And then, buy box suppression. I've been an outspoken critic about this for a very long time because it causes a lot of problems. But you make a really good point, Scott. Every other retailer does this and has been enforcing this on brands since you were selling JanSport stuff, right?
Exactly.
What did some of those agreements look like when you were selling JanSport?
They were just like so. Every retailer wants to be as protected as possible, but there's two things, right? You cannot tell a retailer what to sell a product for. It is illegal. It is the first right doctrine. It is illegal. You can have a manufactured advertised price map, right? You can have all this other stuff. Back in the old days, when we were playing 2% co-op, saying basically for the amount of invoices you buy from us, we're going to invoice you. 2% was a classic co-op agreement for a major retailer. So what they did is we played all kinds of games. Say, hey, you sold us to Target, right? But I saw it at Dick's Sporting Goods, and you had an ad. You had us back in the day. We had a circular. You had right. You in the newspaper. I remember this. This is back in the day. Going, oh my God, Dick's Sporting Goods is selling it, or whoever is selling it, and they're at $19.99, and MAP is $24.99, and just the phone, the actual real landline phone would start going off, right? New emails, people going nuts. So what we do? I want markdown money.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
You didn't tell me. I wanted markdown money. Same thing today. They just call it, auto removal.
Yeah. I mean, look, I've been a real outspoken critic on this. Sometimes I'm a little too insulated with just the Amazon. And when I broaden my scope and I think about other retailers and how this game has been going on, and I get great perspective from friends like you, I changed my mind. And so I do think that piece has legs in this lawsuit, but Amazon Seller Fulfilled Prime reopened on October 1st. That whole argument that they make in the case is just, I think, I said it, I was on the GeekWire podcast on Friday with Todd Bishop, the guys over at GeekWire, and I said, I think this one's DOA. Now, Todd had an interesting take. Todd was at first front row seat to the Microsoft antitrust case when he was covering it back in the day. And he said he thinks that some of the things that the FTC is doing is speaking specifically to monopolistic law. I'm not a lawyer. We're not lawyers. We don't understand that. But on the surface, I agree with a lot of what you're saying here, Scott. This is going to be...
Yes, we are. Let me just be clear. Like, you and I are actually for this. You've been more involved in trying to advocate for it than anybody else that I know, right? Now, my hope is, put spin zone here, positive Scotty on this, is that this is just laying the groundwork. These are jabs, right? These are jabs because we have seen large tech companies, they are reacting to this. They're proactively reacting to this because they see this coming. They have one of the largest lobbyists, paid lobbyists of any industry in the world does Amazon, right? Walmart has the same thing.
$100 million a year in that range.
And let me just be clear to everybody who's just in the Amazon. All these other major retailers, they got it too. In fact, Walmart's had the biggest lobbyists for way longer than Amazon. What I hope is that this is a jab, and where Amazon looks internally, and I've already given you the solution to this. If I can prove to you, Jason Boyce, that this item on Amazon.com isn't sold anywhere else and is a price that is the best price for the Amazon consumer, then I should be allowed to what we call gate it. I should be allowed to not be buy box suppressed ever. If I can document and prove that, then guess what? That's a win-win. FTC's happy, government's happy,
sellers are happy. Brands are happy.
So happy. The consumer's happy.
Yeah.
I think I just solved it all for it. You
There
guys
you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Problem solved. There's the settlement right there, Scott. And, there's one other thing that's, I think, glaring. 3 years ago, it was a much different story than it is today. I do believe that there are a lot of competitors coming for Amazon fast. You made a little joke about TikTok Shop. They get a lot of traffic, right? And if they can solve for some of those logistics pieces, that's a real threat. Walmart's a real threat. They're no longer a rounding error. They're growing every year.
Walmart grocery is a big time. I'm all for all of this.
Big time. Shein's out there, Temu's out there. There's a lot of these, and those worry me more now than Amazon does, because they're Chinese government backed. And where's the equity? Where's the fairness in that, as Amazon has to start to compete and Walmart has to start competing with those channels? And frankly, I'm much happier about the product safety, the likelihood of buying a safe product on Amazon, as I am compared to some of these Chinese-backed marketplaces. And so it is a different ball game. I think they're a day late and $1 short, but it'll be fun for us to cover it. Right, Scott?
I think it's very interesting. And the TikTok Shop thing, and they're all ex-Amazonians, by the way. They have a huge office here in Seattle. These people know what they're doing, right? They didn't go figure this out. And they have no bars, man. They have no guardrails. They have zero requirements as far as, because of their ownership, right? To just come in and do all kinds of stuff. This is the fascinating thing, Jason, which all of these things. Walmart groceries killing it, absolutely killing it. Good for them. Their marketplace now is, Wall Street loves it because they're actually killing it. They got 100,000 sellers, right? Their ad platform is just like the old Amazon days. Now it's a flea market mess over there. Talk about brand security and price suppression. Oy vey, it's absolutely crazy. That's fine, but they're getting seller fees. They're getting their FBA, Walmart Fulfilled. They're doing all the right stuff. But it's going to be really interesting, because what Amazon is got is that first party data, right? They have this huge thing. They don't need a TikTok discovery. They've lacked it. They can't figure out social. And TikTok's like, wow, they got a hell of a shopping cart and they can ship stuff like nobody's business. Walmart tried to buy TikTok. I mean, I think I wouldn't be surprised. I know nothing about this, but if in backroom doors, if Walmart, Amazon, all these people are trying to get some U.S. entity of TikTok so they can go and buy them, merge them, something.
That would be very interesting. Scott, I love having conversations with old friends like you, comparing the way things were to the way they are and predicting based on your vast experience. You're truly one of the good guys in our field, and I'm honored to call you my friend.
Absolutely.
Any last words for our audience, Scott?
I don't know when this thing's coming out, but ship it. If you are relying on Amazon to receive your goods and have them in the available column on your Seller Central, good luck to you.
If you like what you heard on the Day 2 podcast with Scott Ohsman today, he also hosts a terrific podcast, Always Off-Brand podcast, with another Amazon baller, as you like to say, Scott, Summer Jubilier. Did I pronounce
Summer Jubilier, Haley Brucker.
Jubilier, okay.
It's Jubilier.
I encourage you to check it out, especially if you like your Amazon news interspersed with hilarity and entertainment. Scott, are you ready for the big, dark, rainy season that's coming upon us here in the Northwest? Are you mentally prepared for what's coming?
Only because we had such an epic, gorgeous spring and summer, and fall actually has been beautiful. And yes, I'm ready to deal with it, but I do have trips to the sun.
Yeah, me too. That's how you do it. Good call. Thanks again for joining us on the show, and talk to you soon, friend. If you're ready to start growing and protecting your brand on Amazon with a team of experienced Amazon operators, you can visit us at day2podcast.com. That's day2podcast.com. And lastly, if you know anyone else who would benefit from this podcast, please share it with them. Thanks for listening, and happy selling.